Hey guys, this is Carrie, and in this video we're going to be building what I'm calling a storyboard web app, which is going to allow us to tell a story using pictures from the internet. And we're going to get to practice all of our list skills as we do it. So here we go. We're going to go to repl.it, and we're going to create a new project. I'm going to change the name of it to Storyboard, and we'll create this REPL. Now, it's going to be interesting, actually, to think about how we want to build this app. So I'm going to start off really simple here with some kind of unstyled HTML, build out the JavaScript, and then come back to the styling. I always find that to be the hardest part, and kind of the part that you can spend indefinite time on. So thinking about this app, what we're going to have maybe is we'll have a header, so h1. And if you just type in h1, it's been a while since we've done HTML, and press tab, it will create the starting and closing tags, or opening and closing tags for your elements. So we can fill in the inner HTML of this to be storyboard app. Okay, cool. And then what we'll have here is we're going to have a div, and I'm going to give this a class of controls, because there's going to be a series of controls for adding new images to our storyboard. So I'll press enter there, and we've got our opening and closing tags for this div. And then we're going to have another div down below, and this div will have a class of story. And this is where our images are actually going to end up going. So we're going to leave this div blank, and we're going to put images into this div. But for the controls, we're going to actually build those out. So for the controls, let's see, we're going to have one paragraph, and inside of this paragraph, I'm going to make this a little bit easier to see here, add an image. And then what we'll have here is we'll have an input element. Okay, so just making sure that I get that right. Yeah, an input element. And then type here will be text. And then we'll have a button. Closing tag for the button. And this will be maybe add. I'm also going to give an ID to this input and to this button so that we can identify them separate from everything else. So this will be add input, and this will be add button. And I'm using camel case there so that the first letter is not capitalized, but when we change to the next word, button or input, it is capitalized. All right, so let's run this and see how it looks, but instead of running it, I'm just going to pop it open in a new tab. Cool, so it looks like we've got this add image option right here, so that will let us add it. And let's give the user some more directions here. Paste the URL of an image you would like to add. Cool. And then we're also going to have the ability to remove an image, delete an image. So, oh, sorry, I should say what I'm doing as I'm doing it. So I'm just going to copy that whole row. So I'm going to copy this whole group of things here so that we can delete an image. So I'll put an extra enter, which won't appear on the page. This will be delete an image, and it's use the index to delete the image in that position. This type is going to be a number type because it's just going to be the number position in our list that we're trying to delete, if you remember from yesterday's class. And then this will be delete input, and this will be delete button. And then we'll make it delete. So let's see how that looks as well. And this is a number, so we'll be able to scroll up through it. Perfect. All right, so we've got a couple of our basic controls here. It looks like we're also going to add in an insert control, but I'm going to leave that one blank for now. I'm not going to incorporate that immediately, and then we'll go back and we'll add that in, because that one's a little bit more complicated. All right, so thinking about our JavaScript here, there's a couple of things that we want to think about. So one thing I noticed is we're going to be working with a list of images that's going to appear on the page here. So the way that the app is going to work is we'll copy and paste the URLs here. When we add them, it will add the image to the page to create a storyboard. So in order to do that, we're going to need those new tools from our cheat sheet. These functions do not come built into JavaScript. They're using the language of the APCSP test. So I've linked the cheat sheet probably into the Google Classroom assignment. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my list tools that we were talking about yesterday in class and paste those into the JavaScript. By putting them at the top, this means that the rest of our JavaScript code will have access to these tools in order to add, append, insert, and remove things from the list of images that we're creating. Next up, thinking about how we usually begin our JavaScript stuff, we're going to select all of the elements on the page that we're going to be interacting with. So let's add a comment here. All right, so to do this, we're going to break out our favorite tool, document.querySelector. So thinking about the tools that we're going to interact with, one is going to be this add input and the add button. So we're going to keep the same names. Let add input equal document.querySelector hashtag add input. And we're using hashtag there because we're selecting it by its ID. It has an ID of add input. We're also going to copy and paste this a few times. And I put the space here to separate, well, you'll see why. So we'll do add input and add input and add button. And I'm just going to use copy and paste here to change this from add input to add button. This will be remove, or what did we call it? Delete input? Delete input and delete button. So we got the two buttons on our page and the two input fields that we're going to be interacting with, which is great. We also are going to, hey, I don't need to do that. We also are going to need to interact with this div, this story class, and this is where we're going to be putting our images. So let's grab that as well. So let story equal document, and we're going to select that div, so query selector, and then select that div using the hashtag, I think it's story. Let's just make sure. Yeah, story. And we're going to add our images inside of this story once we create the list. Okay, so on our web page, what it's going to look like is the user is going to do like a Google image search. They're going to find a cool image. They'll paste the URL here. Let's actually do it. So maybe they'll search for something like fractal. And they'll find this really cool image of a fractal, and they're going to be like, I want to add this to my storyboard. So they'll click this, open image in new tab, and then they'll grab this link from the top, paste this link in, add it, and then it should appear here. Of course, that doesn't happen yet because we need to program the functionality. So let's do that. So building out the functionality here, one easy way to structure this is rather than worry about populating the whole page right away, what we could do is we could create a list of the images as they add them, and then refresh the page kind of by adding all of the images from that list. So let's see how that would look. So let's define let images equal to an empty list. So we start off with no images. And then what it looks like to me is it looks like when they click the add button, we're going to want to add this text to the list of images. So it's been a while here, but good thing we have our cheat sheet open. Let's create the functionality for the add button. So that's going to be an event listener because we're interacting with the page, we're clicking on the page. So here's our event listener thing. So we'll grab that. And the element that's going to be listening for the event is going to be the add button, because that's the thing that's going to interact with the user. It's going to be a click event. And then the function that we want to run is we want to take the images list and we want to append to that whatever URL is in here. So to get the URL, when we click the button, let's let the URL equal go to this add input element, which is this element right here, and to get the text from that, something we've done before is you get the value from it. So the URL is going to be go into the add input and grab the value from it. So that will give us just the text that's inside of this input element. Okay, now what we want to do next is we want to add that URL to our images list. So to do that, we have to think which of our functions is going to let us do that. And it's going to be the append function. So the way the append function works is we say append, and you can see it actually comes up here. It's two parameters. It's the list, and then the list we want to append to, and then the value we want to append. So we want to append to the images list whatever the URL was. So by grabbing that URL, we'll be able to append it to this list. And then we'll just do a console.log the images list. So the images won't load on the page this time, but they should actually be impacting the page. So I'm going to copy that link. I'm going to refresh the page. I'm going to open up the JavaScript console, which is mega zoomed in from our classwork yesterday. And let's see if it works. So I'm going to paste that here and then add it. And you'll see that we have a list with this image in it. And if I grab another cool fractal image, I don't know, like this one here, open image in new tab, and we do a Command A to select all, delete, and then a Command V, we can add another image here. And we'll see that our list, it's kind of hard to see down here, but if you look at it, our list actually has two elements in it. It's telling us the length is 2. And if you click the drop-down button, it says the 0th one is here and the first one is here. All right, so how do we make these images appear on our page? Well, to make these images appear on our page instead of just in the console, it's actually pretty easy. What we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, we need to create a new image. Or first what we need to do is we need to, sorry, I know that we're going to make a mistake, but me knowing that doesn't show you why we need to do this. So let's just do it in the way that makes the mistake. We need to create a new element. So this has been a while. JavaScript, how to create new elements. So we use this document.createElement function. And we've used this before. I'm trying to think about when we used it. I can't really remember. I think with the shopping list and stuff. So document.createElement. Oh, and you know what? We're not just going to create one element, actually. So I'm getting a little ahead of the game here. What we want to do is every time we add an element to our list, it should refresh the storyboard and show all of the images. So it's going to go through the images, and for each one of them, it's going to display it. So what we really want to do here is we want to do an images.forEach loop where we go through this list of images and we take each item in that list. I'm going to call it an image in that list, each image in that list, and run this functionality. So you give each of the items a temporary name. It's called image as we go through it. And for each of those, what we want to do is we want to do a document.create element. We're going to create an img element. So it's going to be an image element in our HTML that's going to go in here. Then what we want to do is we want to take, we need to give that a variable name. So let new image equal that. Then what we're going to do is we're going to say take that new image and make the source of that equal to the URL from the list. Now if we look at our list, the items in our list are just the URLs. So we're going to make the new image's source equal to whichever element or whichever item in the image list we're up to. So let me just use some comments here. Create a new img element. That's what this line is doing. Set the source of the img element to the URL from the list, which is this thing right here, the image. And then what we're going to do is we're going to append this to this story div. So story.append child new image. So let's see how this looks. I'm going to actually open up a Sublime Text tab to keep track of the URLs that we've been finding so that I don't... Oh, actually this isn't too bad if I keep these tabs open. Okay, yeah, we'll just do that instead. All right, so here we go. Let's see what happens. So refreshing the page. Oh, I'm going to keep the console open in case we get any errors. All right, so we'll grab this URL first. We'll add that. It says it can't read property append child of null. So let's see why that happened. So we're trying to do story.append child. So it must be that story is null. So it's having a problem with this document.querySelector hashtag story. Oh, I gave it a class of story instead of an ID. So my selector should actually be, for this one, dot story. Sorry about that. Let's do a refresh here and add it. And we see that that image comes up here. Now, I think it's time that we bounce quickly into the CSS here because the images are going to be super large. So to avoid that, what we can do is we can say, okay, for all of the images, give them a style property height of 200 pixels. And now when we go over here, refresh it and add it, it just takes a couple of times to refresh the CSS. We'll see that we get a much more manageable thing. All right, so now I'm going to add my second image, and ideally what this should look like is it should look like, oh no, it should look like just these two images side by side. So let's see what's happening here. I'm just going to grab one more image, open image in new tab. I'll grab that URL. And I'll do a Command A, delete, Command V, and I'll add it. I think the problem is that every time we add a new image, it's not erasing what was previously in that story div. That's actually a really easy fix, and this is the error I kind of knew we were going to have. So before we load in each of the images, we need to clear out whatever was in there before. So to do that, we'll do story, which is this div right here, and we'll set the inner HTML of that to an empty string, which will delete everything that was inside of this div. So we'll clear out the div, and then every time we add in something, clear it out, set it equal to the empty string, and then go through the images and load them all in. So now if we do it, we grab this one, add it, cool. Grab this one, Command A, delete, add it, it clears it, and then reloads both of them. And grab this one. It clears it, and then adds in all three of them. And I think this looks pretty cool. So you can create a story here by finding different images from the internet to do that. All right, the last thing we're going to do is we're going to make a delete an image button. So when we delete something, it's going to be very similar to what we did above. I'm just going to type this in instead of use the cheat sheet. Delete button dot add event listener. So the delete button listen. You know what's best, guys? A lot of people will misspell listener here. You see how it comes up? Just click that, and it will auto-complete it for you. It's going to be a click event. We're going to define a function with a code block that's going to run. All right, so here what we're going to do is we're going to do something very similar. Instead of getting the URL from here, what we're going to do is if we want to delete an image, we're going to get the index of the image that we're going to delete from this field right here. So let's let index equal go into the delete input and get the value from this input field. Okay, so when we click the delete button, we get the value that they wrote here. And then what we want to do is we want to remove that image. So because we have these tools up here, we can just call the remove function. So I'm just going to copy and paste this function part here. So we want to remove from the images list the thing that's at the index that they put in. So we grab that there. And the next part of this is actually pretty interesting. It's all going to be the same as what we did before. So when they remove an image, we'll log to the console what the images are. We'll clear out the story, and then we'll reload each of the images that are now in the list. So let's test this out. So I just literally copied and pasted from here, sorry, 36 through 46 here, and do some reformatting. Okay, so we clear out the story div, and then for each of the images we load it in. All right, so here we go. Let's create our story. Whoa, too much going on, sorry. So we add the first one, we add the second one, we add the third one, okay, cool, and let's say we want to remove that last one. We have to remove it using its index, so we would go 0, 1, 2, and this would be 2, and then we press delete, and now it's gone. Let's say we want to remove the first one. We press 0 here, and we delete it, and now it's gone. Cool. All right, I teased briefly that we were going to make an insert button. Let's do it. Let's use all of our list functions here. So to make an insert button, we're going to have a row really similar to this. But the insert button is a bit more complicated because we need our list, which is going to be the images list. We need an index, and we also need the value. So you have to specify where in our images list we want to insert it, and then also what we're inserting in. So to do this, we're going to go back to our controls div. I'm going to grab this here, copy and paste this paragraph here, and this will be insert an image. Specify the index, then URL to add. The index position, then URL to add. So this is going to be, we're going to have two inputs here. One is going to be the position. Let me just refresh it. One is going to be the position, and then the other is going to be the URL. So for the position here, this is going to be a number type input. So an input element with a number type. This is going to be insert index, but we're also going to have a URL here, which is going to be insert URL. And I guess URL will be all caps, and this will be type text for that input element. And then this button here will be the insert button, and it will just have the inner HTML text of insert. Okay, cool. So we have our insert image. So this is going to be the position. This will be the URL, and it's saying delete, but if I refresh it again, it catches up and does insert. Okay, great. So time to do some JavaScript. Create the functionality for the insert button. All right, so here we go. Insert button. Oh! Now we're interacting with elements on the page that we haven't selected, so we need to select those. Let insert, that's funny, okay, I started typing insert button and I just got to insert but there, so here we go. We need to grab the insert index. Gosh, I'm totally spaced. Insert index is equal to document dot query selector hashtag insert image. Let's copy and paste this. The next one was insert URL, all caps, because URL is an abbreviation. And then the next one was insert button. And this will be insert button. All right, so to do this, we take the insert button, add event listener, click events, and you can use the cheat sheet to copy and paste here, but it's just faster for me to write it out, and then define a function that's going to run. We need to grab two values from our input fields. So let's let the index equal, go to the insert index field, which is this field, and grab the value from that. Let URL equal, go to the insert URL field and grab the value from that. Now instead of calling the remove function or the append function, we're going to call the insert function. So I'm just going to grab that function from up here. It's been defined through our copy and paste, and we're going to insert into the images list at the index position whatever URL they have typed in. And then finally, we need to just update the storyboard. So to do that, we'll empty this, or we'll do a console.log the images, we'll empty the storyboard, and then we'll load in each of the images. So we copy and paste the same lines of text from the last couple of functions. And I probably should have used some comments there to define what I was doing, but it's okay. All right, so now our whole thing should be working. Let's see if it works. So I'm just going to refresh it a couple of times. All right, let's build out our story. So here we go. We've got our first URL, add it. And this is like kind of a pain to test because we have to kind of rebuild it each time. Our second URL, add it. Cool, we get our list there. Third URL, add it. Awesome, 1, 2, 3. Okay, now let's test out our insert function. So I'm going to take this fractal image. I'm going to open this image in a new tab. So that's not the image. Open image in new tab. What? Okay, for some reason it's downloading the image whenever I click it. I'm going to choose a different one. Expand your mind with these intricate fractals. I clicked link. I don't want the link. I want the image in the new tab. Okay, cool. This is like a easy link.jpg. All right, so we'll copy it. Clear this out, paste it. Oh no, sorry, we know how to add images. We want to insert it. So to insert, we'll go 0, 1. Let's say we want to put it in between these two. So that would be position 0, 1, position 2 would be here. And then we'll insert this link. Let's hope it works. No, I got an error. No. You cannot read the value of null, line 73. Okay. So let index equal insert index dot value. So insert index. I wrote the wrong, I think, ID there. Let's check it out. Yeah, the ID is insert index, and I put insert image. So we need to select insert index. It should match the variable name. Sorry. All right, so I think now we're ready to just rebuild it out real quick. So testing this is a bit challenging. And now here we want to insert into position 2 this URL. So that should go 0, 1, 2. Okay, hopefully I don't have any mistakes. Okay, great. 0, 1, 2. And then we have a new line because it didn't fit. So it did load all of those correctly. And let's say we want to put a couple of copies there. 0, 1, 2. We can insert it again. So 0, 1, 2. It just put this new copy there. And we can insert another copy there. And we've got a story of fractals. Now, the reason why I was big on the console logs is it's kind of cool to see this list evolving over time. So this is actually just our list building up. And if we click the drop down, we can actually see the index positions 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 to make a total of 6 elements starting at 0. And the elements inside are just these links with a length of 6. So pretty neat, the information that gets displayed in the console. And I think you could use this to tell a pretty interesting story using images from the internet. If you chose images instead of just fractals, and then maybe you could like screenshot it. I feel like this could be like kind of like maybe a useful tool for film or for just storytelling in general. Or even like kind of like memes, like you could just put images back to back to create kind of like a comic or something that tells a story. And then you could screenshot it using the Command Shift 4 function. Mine doesn't tell a very good story. It's just spiral, 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 spiral. All right, guys, that's the end, I think. You could obviously style this a lot better to make it actually look like an enticing app, but we don't really have time for that.